$600,000. These numbers, it's still early, but they do look to be legitimate for this year as well. And we don't know, again, with the state. Again, the governor wants to add additional funding next year. He's projecting, I believe it was an additional $350 million for the 16-17 budget, built off of his 15-16 budget of $200 million. So we don't know where we're going to end here, but we're being aggressive and saying an additional $600,000 because we do believe that the state will adopt the funding formula the Basic Ed Commission recommends, and that will be beneficial for us.
So that is a major shift in philosophy, because in prior years we would have sat down and said, you know what, we don't have the money from the state, we're not going to plan on the money for the state. This is a little bit of a shift in getting a little bit aggressive with the budget. And again, it's to try to find some money in the budget so that we can bring down that bottom line, if you will, the amount of money that we're going to have to balance the budget. But we're comfortable that that money is going to be there. And as Aaron said, nobody knows yet how it's going to be rolled out or what exactly it's going to be, but we do anticipate that we're going to make out better as a district in terms of the money from the state. So we're willing to take that gamble, but I want everybody here to hear it loud and clear. It's a little change in philosophy for us.
So let's look, after discussing how we're becoming more aggressive in a few line items and a few other immaterial changes, our deficit sits at $1.8 million. Again, this is the same options of the slide that you've seen before. The savings, for which, how many kids are impacted.
Well, that's the slide we've been showing. So if you look at the quick math, we're at 1.8, we've already talked about the alt ed. That's a no-brainer, that's going to go. So if you want to just cut to the next slide, Aaron. What we're saying tonight is this. If you look at the 1.8, we get rid of the alt ed program, we're down to $1 million. If you raise taxes to cover that, you are not going to the index. You are going under the index, which was an option I think that Mr. Kabilka had talked about a while ago. Can you look at maybe a fourth? We heard it from a couple of speakers coming in saying, can you look to get that somewhere between the index and no tax increase? This is, I don't want to say it's in the middle, but it's pretty good. We feel pretty good about it. That's where we want to start tonight's discussion. Obviously, what you don't see up there is Montessori. If you want to raise the taxes, since Montessori is the program that we've been talking about, and one thing about the Montessori, we've talked after these meetings, you know, it is what it is. That program, when we talk about sustaining our growth, we're going to be looking at the programs that cost the money and affect the least amount of kids. It's unfortunate that they have to come, but we have to talk about it again, and they go through this year after year. But again, when we were looking at these, we were looking at those programs that affect the least amount of kids in terms of taking a program away. So we feel getting rid of the alt ed this year is about $800,000. Tax increase up to $1 million is, I think it's pretty good to start with. So,
And I would like to keep in mind a few stats and just wrapping up from what we discussed in the last 3 months. I mean, we know that Mill Creek's tax rate is rather low. We know that our revenue per student is extremely low. Therefore, our expenditures per student is 464th in the state. So knowing that I think those 3 facts are important to recognize when determining what decisions you want to make moving forward.
Oh, I didn't see that. I forgot you put that up there. So the tax increase, if you look at a tax increase to cover the $1 million, it's about $15. We're pretty sure somewhere around $15, $20 per $100,000 home. The Act 1 index, I think, was up to about $40. So we worked hard to get it down underneath there to give the board another option. And again, I mean, everybody read the article I put together. We have to continue to look at some sustained, small, incremental tax increases to build our revenue. We've already presented the long-term costs that are going to be coming down the pipe for us. The VOTEC is a big one. So It would be nice to keep scrubbing away, but I don't think we can cut our way to a balanced budget and maintain the integrity of this district. It's a strong district. It's going to remain strong. We have to continue to sustain it. One other thing, those of you that weren't here when Jay Himes was here, we are 464th in the state of 500 in terms of how much money we spend on kids. When you think about that, what a tremendous job that's being done by the people in this district to make the dollar stretch, okay? It's stretched out about as far as we can go. So that's where we want to start tonight, and I think that's it. Oh, you have another? Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, our timeline. So we want to talk about it tonight, see where the board, see where you're at. We have a committee of the whole meeting that we want to come forward with our proposed final budget. We're going to ask you to approve that at the committee of the whole meeting, which is coming up here, what, next week? Next week. Because as we know by the May board meeting, we have to have a final budget approved, so.
Mr. Hall, is that the count meeting, is that this month or in May?
This month, next Monday.
So you're going to have 6 weeks before the May board meeting to approve the final budget.
Yes, right.
Correct. Roughly.
The town meeting is next week.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to hit the light, so I'm
You
just
need
giving
that.
everybody a warning here.
You need minimum 4 weeks roughly between the proposed final and the final anyhow. And have it out publicly.
Yeah, I'd like to propose that the approval of the proposed budget would be at that meeting in May.
I guess here's the problem that we have with it, is historically, before we moved up our tax period, where you receive a discount in July and August, now that's the way it is, it's historically August and September. We need that additional month to get out our tax bills on time. So that's why we want to approve our final budget at the end of May.
Board, any comments?
And then backing into that, if you have to approve the final at the end of May, I think it's 30 days prior to final approval, you have to have it advertised and the proposed final has to be approved.
What this looks like, I mean, it was 2.4. Now it's 1.8, total budget required. And we eliminated 700,000 by a more optimistic revenue projections.
That's how we got from 2.4 down to 1.8
2.6.
or whatever,
Yeah.
2.6 down to 1.8.
So 740,000 is just
I mean,
an
you-
adjustment to our
It's
guess.
getting a little bit more aggressive with our prediction, as opposed to being very conservative.
And you're starting to see data too, where these are the last 2 years. Our data is starting to support being more aggressive in our budget. The state, I mean, the basic ed and the ready to learn, at any point in time, they can say the ready to learn, they're not gonna do it. The state funding, they could not give it any additional funding. They don't have to use a new funding formula. They can be giving districts out east some more funds than us. I mean, without a proper funding formula, we have no idea of knowing, and we still have an uncertainty of what that allocation amount will even be as a total from the state level. That's the environment we live in. We have to prepare a budget, and we don't know our state contributions yet.
And I guess the thing that kind of get, well, we're being aggressive on that. We don't know what we want, but we're going to be aggressive. So we better have a backup plan if we don't get this, right? I mean, if we don't, these projections don't come to be, because we don't know now, we're guessing, right?
Sure.
I mean, it's an educated guess.
Well,
It's not-
like Aaron said though, we have enough historical data that we can kind of take a look at it and try to trend it out. The ready to learn is the big one,
Okay.
the group up there.
The other thing, where does that put us in getting our capital reserve accounts built up and our 7.7 million goal? Where does this budget